Are Peterborough dead and buried? Do Derby have anything left in the tank? Will Barnsley's very recent form continue? And can Reading keep that nice little gap they've got at the moment? Who is going down from the Championship? Let's have a look. Hello everybody, welcome along. My name's Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door. And join us to have a look at the runners and riders. Who do we think is going down? Here is the current state of play. Peterborough, 21 at the bottom. Couple of games in hand on Derby, who would have 42 points if they hadn't been deducted 21. Barnsley were absolutely nowhere and have won 3 in their last 4. Reading currently hold that 21st place that all those teams below them won. I think we're safe to say, though, looking above 8-point gap from Reading up to Birmingham, 14-point gap there. We are very much in 3 from 4 territory, and I'm not really sticking my neck out very much saying that, am I? Before we get into the nuts and bolts of this season's relegation battle, we'll just have a look back into the past 10 seasons to see what history tells us. And the pertinent question really is, do dramatic escapes often happen? I think we need to define dramatic. Yes, we get switching around on the last day of the season often, but is that just symptomatic of a normal Saturday afternoon of everybody playing at the same time? People swap positions. They just do if they're within 3 points of each other. We see it every week on the Super Stream. What I'm more talking about is we are 35 games in. We're at round 36 this weekend. Could the likes of a Barnsley make up 6 points, or Derby or Peterborough make up 8 points? That to me is a dramatic escape rather than a 30-minute switch around on the last day of a team that's within 3 points. The answer is no, not really. I looked over the last 10 years, and Luton and Barnsley in 2019-20 does seem to be the best example. Yes, you can probably find me 3, 4, 5 examples of a team who's third bottom overtaking a team who's fourth bottom, and the gap at the point of game 36, as we're talking about, can be as little as 2 points, 3 points. But in terms of a big one, this is the one you'd be looking at. You can see Luton and Barnsley there, 24th and 23rd, with 35 games played in the 2019-20 season. They're both going to survive. You can see the gap. Sorry to be boring about this. There's only actually 3 points from Barnsley up to Middlesbrough, and from Luton up to Middlesbrough is 4 points. Obviously, there's a million caveats in this season because COVID is about to happen. Wigan are about to get deducted 12 points. We're about to have 3 months off without any football. So not exactly a normal season. And Hull City and Charlton in 17 and 18th are actually going to be the ones that end up going down. Yes, I know people will say, oh, Ben, you should count the gap between Luton and Barnsley and those two teams. Not really. No, the gap to safety is the gap to safety, and that's what you've got to surmount at any point during the season. There's the final table. That's not adjusted for Wigan's 12 points, so drop Wigan down to 47, and you can see Charlton were rather unlucky to be relegated on 48 points. Collapse from Charlton, collapse from Hull. Good run from Luton, who in the end were 51, 3 points clear of Charlton, who were ultimately 22nd. Barnsley, just to add a little bit of extra spice, did it in injury time on the last day of the season. So when we're looking at this season's relegation battle, final day place switching, yes, we see it. We saw it last season where everybody swapped places on the last day. But across the sample size, we're talking, analysing from game 35 now, round 36 this coming weekend, not too much change. And in the past 10 years, only really that 19-20 season, with the caveat of COVID, Wigan's points deduction, Hull's collapse, is the one, isn't it? Long-term runs from miles behind? No, not really. Let's have a look at the points per game projections then for the teams involved in the relegation fight. That is just those bottom 4. As ever, I've done 3 projections. One is the seasonal projection, so every game, points per game rolled out over the number of remaining games. The second is based on recent form, so the 12-game form table, if that was rolled out for the rest of the season, what would happen? Then I've averaged the two together. I'll always say at this point, I'm just presenting the data here. How you choose to perceive it is up to you. Try and, as ever, not perceive it through an emotional lens if it doesn't say exactly what you want it to about the team you support, perhaps. So, seasonal points per game. Peterborough, if we roll out their form for the entirety of this season, over their remaining games, they've got 13 left, 29.27, under 30, very low indeed. Barnsley, not too much better, 32.06. The fly in the ointment with Barnsley is the last 4 games, though, because if that last 4 games is any kind of projection for what they're going to do over the remainder of the season, anywhere even close, and a lot of these numbers will move up very fast. Can they do it? I don't know. You tell me. Derby, 34.2, but the really interesting number, look at that, 55.2 without that points deduction. They would be mid-50s and pretty much every season in the Championship. I know Peterborough went down. I think that was 54, wasn't it? So basically, in short, nobody gets relegated with that number of points. And we do need to remember that when we're talking about Derby, because it can be a bit confusing looking at the table, seeing where they are. It's not actually a representation of what they've done on the pitch, more what's been happening off the pitch for the past 4 or 5 seasons. Reading, 41.35. And again, they've had a 6 points deduction, so it would be 47.35. So there's a couple of key take-homes there with the seasonal points per game. The first is that if we roll it out, Reading are going to finish just about 7 points clear of safety, comfortably safe. The second is, without the points deductions, Derby and Reading, 47 and 55, are way better than Barnsley and Peterborough. We've got an argument for Barnsley being able to improve just on the basis of that last 4 games. Big enough sample size, we don't know. We literally can't see the future. That's why we're making the video. Peterborough, there doesn't seem to be too much argument, does there? Here is the 12-game form points per game. It doesn't change things massively. Peterborough, 26.41. What it does, look at Derby and Barnsley. Exactly the same, 33.83 if we take the last 12 games and roll out that points per game number over the rest of the season. Reading are still clear, less so, as in, 3.17 points. So, if we roll out the recent form, it's quite a bit closer, isn't it? And you start to say, oh, okay, take a couple of points off Reading and add a couple onto one of the others, and we could be in for something. What we do know, though, is that Derby's form actually reasonably matches most of the season. So we do need an uptick from Derby. We've got it from Barnsley over the last 4, but I reiterate, is that going to last? Averaging the 2 out, do we learn much? Not greatly, no. The gap's back in there. 5-point gap. It does have Derby over Barnsley by just over a point, obviously because of the rest of the season. Peterborough adrift by 5. So we've got 2 5-point gaps in there. So basically, analysing all of those points projections, they've all got Reading being safe. The bottom 3 as they are going down. We've got a bit of a gap on a couple of them. It's only the one with the recent form where we can make any kind of argument for either Derby or Barnsley overtaking Reading. Looking at the opponent difficulty down at the bottom can be a little bit of a minefield. We get more of an idea when we're talking about higher calibrated teams that are more consistent. We know down the bottom it's snail racing, and 3 points here, 4 points in 2 games makes a huge difference. However, I've done the due diligence here, and we can have a look at the average opponent position seasonally. Again, points deductions, we've not factored into this. I don't believe that's a representation of how hard someone is to play against, more how bad certain ownerships have been. What it does tell us is Barnsley come out on top in this one. 13.23 is the average opponent position. Peterborough, the most difficult. If we adjust that now for form, actually works out even better for Barnsley. But look, toggle between those. It also gets slightly better for Reading. So if you do want to see some kind of chaos, you've got the right numbers there, because on paper, in terms of seasonal league position and 12-game form table, Barnsley apparently have the most easy run-in. What is absolutely key, though, is Barnsley are the only team that play all three of these sides in this bottom four between now and the end of the season. Of course, it's Barnsley versus Derby tomorrow. I'm recording on Friday, 4th of March here. And big game, Barnsley versus Reading. Barnsley at home to Reading after a bit of a tricky run for Reading. So fixture-wise, we do get a bit of an argument for Barnsley, possibly against Reading. Here are my conclusions then, and the first one is not too mind-bending. Peterborough look down, don't they? When we look at everything, okay, there's been a new manager go in there in Grant McCann, but he lost his first game 3-0 at home to Hull. The points per game have them as being a lot worse than both Derby and Reading. And we've got no argument. We've got the points per game argument in terms of Derby and Reading that they're better. And we've got the recent form argument for Barnsley. We just don't have anything to hang our hat on for Peterborough in that dreadful away form as well. So that would be my first conclusion. Not a biggie, I guess, that the side that's bottom look down with 13 games to go. This is an interesting one. Derby need Reading to collapse. That may not be stating the obvious, because I think a lot of people have had their eyes on Derby all season and the points deduction and the chase. Derby's points per game is good, but look at the predictions. It's not going to be enough on current form. They do need either a huge pickup themselves, and I think Derby are 1.2 points per game, so up to 1.5, 1.6, which is winning every second game, basically, isn't it? And they do need a Reading drop-off. Reading to drop maybe to 0.7 or 0.6 points per game for a sustained run. And that might do for Derby. That's not factoring in Barnsley either. So I don't think it's enough for Derby to just maintain it about 1.2. That looks like they'll still go down unless they get very lucky and there's an almighty collapse from both teams above them. Barnsley's fixtures, games in hand, and very recent form are all positive. So we had a few reasons to be cheerful for Barnsley, it has to be said. And we're in a bit of trouble here, though, because we're filming this now, and it's 3 wins in the last 4 games. And we could be sat here in the next 7 games, and they've scored 2 more points and lost another 5 games, and that's it. And we'll look back and we'll say, oh, nice little spike, it didn't continue. What if it does, though? That's the thing. So they've got games in hand. They've got very recent good form. It is a small sample size. One does have to confess that. And I cannot state or overstate the importance of the fact that they have got games. Derby versus Barnsley, 5th of March. Barnsley versus Reading, 2nd of April. Barnsley versus Peterborough, 18th of April. If they score 6, 7, or God forbid 9 points from that, well, you show me what the table looks like if they beat all of their rivals. Reading have goal power, but the next 5 fixtures define it. We've spoken a great deal in terms of Reading about the fact that because they've missed Yaku Maite, Lucas Zhao, John Swift, Ovi Ejaria for vast swathes of this season, that there's an argument for improvement, that they literally get that first team on the pitch and up, and away they go. That argument does still stand. I do think those guys are quality players and can get Reading goals in the running. However, there is a bit of a doomsday scenario here for Reading in that their next games are against Millwall, who've won 4 on the trot, Forest, who are in a big playoff chase, Bournemouth, those 2 games are away, by the way, as well, who are in the top 2 chase, then Blackburn, who are in the top 4, and then there's that huge game up at Barnsley. So Reading have got hard fixtures in the very immediate future, and there is an argument that, well, what if they get 1, 2 or 3 points from those 5 games? In the meantime, Barnsley get 4, 5, 6, 7, and you can see where I am going with that. there's an argument for a turnaround, and sometimes just getting your nose in front and possession being 9/10 of the law can be a thing. So, predictions. This is what we're here for, isn't it? What I will say before I go into my woolly prediction, as ever, is get yours in the comments. Really, we're talking 3 from 4. So it's almost, tell me your team to survive and why. And if the answer's because I support them and I want them to, it's probably not really going to work. We want some logic. We appreciate everybody's passion. So, I cannot get my eyes off Barnsley versus Reading on the 2nd of April. Is there an argument that you could be changing places there, and Barnsley could, amazingly, having looked like they were going to be one of the worst teams in Championship history coming out of the bottom 4? What do I think? Who do I think is going to survive? I think Reading will survive. I just cannot see enough fuel on the fire for a turnaround big enough, even though there's a game in hand, to usurp the 6 points and 8 points gap. And I feel that if Swift, Ejaria, Maite, Zhao particularly, Swift and Zhao, can stay on the pitch, Reading perhaps need 3 more wins. A point per game will take Reading to 41 points. And if Barnsley or Derby, especially Derby with a 21-point deduction, but if Barnsley reach 41 points and have a superior goal difference, they'll deserve everything they get. That's my look at who's going down, or more to the point, who is surviving. Why not check out our most recent video, which was, or our most recent one of these, the look at who's getting in the playoffs. You can watch that one just there. Get involved in the comments. Who is surviving? Who is going down? 3 from 4. Hit like, hit subscribe, ring the bell. And if your team's involved in this, good luck is all I'll say. Get your thoughts in via the comments. And I will see you on the channel. Lots of live previews, reviews. Well worth hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. Love you big. Over and out from me. Thanks for watching.